In this video, we will look at 4 terrifying incidents in which kayakers came face-to-face with crocodiles and alligators.
What the fuck you cocksucker!
Some survived, some weren't as lucky. As always, viewer discretion is advised. In May 2012, 26-year-old Thomas Swiader Jr. took his kayak onto Triplet Lake in Castleberry, Florida. It was around 7 in the evening, and Thomas was fishing for bass. Sitting with him in the small kayak was Buffy, his girlfriend's Yorkshire Terrier. A camera attached to Thomas's helmet recorded the trip from his point of view. For most of the recording, nothing appears unusual. Thomas slowly moves across the lake, surrounded by quiet water and houses along the shoreline. Buffy remains close to him while he watches his fishing line. There is no visible warning that an 8-foot predator is moving somewhere beneath the surface. Thomas continues fishing until his attention is drawn toward movement beside the kayak. Before he can clearly identify what is approaching, the water explodes. A large alligator surges upward and slams directly into the side of the kayak. Its head rises far enough from the water to strike Thomas on the arm. The force rocks the narrow craft violently, throwing Buffy out of the kayak and into the lake. For Thomas, the danger immediately changes. He is still sitting only inches above the alligator, but the small dog is now struggling in the same water as the predator. Fortunately, Buffy's leash is attached to Thomas. He grabs the leash and pulls her back toward the kayak. For several terrifying seconds, Thomas must lean toward the water to recover her, while the alligator remains beneath or beside the boat. He manages to lift Buffy back inside before the animal can reach her. The danger, however, has not passed. Thomas sees the alligator move beneath the kayak. Its body circles close enough for him to see its tail curling around the boat. The animal has not simply struck and disappeared. It remains directly below him. Thomas estimated that the alligator was approximately 8 feet long. With Buffy back aboard, he begins paddling away as quickly as possible. Every movement of the paddle carries the risk of attracting the animal again, but remaining still would leave them directly above it. The alligator does not launch a second attack. Thomas reaches safety without suffering a serious injury, and Buffy is also unharmed. The helmet camera, however, preserves the moment the calm fishing trip transformed without warning. Thomas believed the alligator may have been attracted to Buffy. Wildlife officials offered another explanation. The animal may have viewed the kayak as another large alligator entering its territory. Whatever caused the charge, Thomas had almost no time to react. On July 12, 2020, firefighter and paramedic Peter Joyce launched his kayak near the dam at Lake Waccamaw in North Carolina. From there, he entered the upper Waccamaw River, a dark, slow-moving waterway surrounded by trees, submerged branches, and thick vegetation. Peter had encountered alligators during previous paddling trips. Normally, the animals disappeared when they detected an approaching kayak. That afternoon, he expected the same reaction. A GoPro camera attached to his chest recorded Peter paddling alone through the narrow river. For nearly a minute, the footage shows nothing except the bow of his kayak, still water, and the wooded shoreline ahead. Then Peter hears something to his left. At first, it sounds like a fish jumping near the bank. He turns toward the disturbance but sees very little. The dark surface and surrounding shadows make it difficult to separate an animal from the water. Then a head appears. The alligator is already moving directly toward him. It begins its charge from approximately 20 feet away, driving through the shallow water with its mouth open. By the time Peter recognizes it as an alligator, the animal is only about 3 feet from his kayak. There is no time to turn, retreat, or raise the paddle in defense. The alligator crashes into the front of the kayak. Water erupts across the camera as the force rolls the craft and throws Peter sideways. He plunges partially beneath the surface while the alligator passes against or underneath the kayak. Submerged tree limbs beside him prevent the boat from turning completely upside down. Without those branches, Peter could have become trapped beneath the kayak or thrown entirely into the water. The attack lasts less than 4 seconds. When Peter lifts himself upright, the alligator has disappeared. That does not mean the danger is over. Peter cannot see where it has gone. For several seconds, he remains almost motionless, listening and watching the surface while waiting for another charge. Nothing happens. He then turns the kayak and begins paddling rapidly away from the area. Only after escaping does the full force of the encounter become clear. Peter had not startled a small animal hiding along the bank. A mature alligator had deliberately crossed the water and struck his kayak hard enough to roll it. He later said he had never seen an alligator behave that way during his previous trips. Most created a splash and moved away. This one maintained its charge until it made contact. The chest-mounted camera captured how little warning he received. There was a sound beside the kayak. A shape appeared in the water, and before Peter's mind could fully understand what he was seeing, the alligator was already beneath him. By December 2010, Hendri Coetzee had spent years traveling through some of Africa's most dangerous waterways. The 35-year-old South African kayaker had previously led an expedition along the length of the Nile and had navigated rivers inhabited by crocodiles and hippopotamuses. That experience made him the natural guide for American kayakers, Ben Stooksbury and Chris Korbelich. The three men were attempting to document remote and previously unexplored whitewater through Central Africa. Their journey would eventually become the documentary Kadoma. Hendri understood that the greatest threat did not always come from the rapids. He instructed Ben and Chris to avoid the banks where crocodiles rested, remain clear of quiet eddies where hippopotamuses could hide and maintain a tight formation whenever they crossed calm sections of water. For weeks, the method appeared to work. On December 7th, the group entered a quiet section of the Lukuga River in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It had rained heavily for 2 days. The men had already completed more than 30 miles of whitewater and now faced approximately 200 miles of slower river before reaching their destination. Earlier that day, they had noticed several small crocodiles. None appeared large enough to threaten the kayaks. When they entered the flat water, the three men formed a close triangle in the middle of the river. The channel was approximately 100 feet wide. Hendri paddled in the center, with Ben slightly ahead on one side and Chris behind on the other. Only 4 or 5 feet separated their boats. They remained close enough that their paddles could have collided. The river appeared calm. Chris briefly glanced toward Hendri to check their spacing. At that exact moment, a crocodile erupted from behind the group. There had been no visible wake and no warning from the shoreline. The animal rose beside Hendri's left shoulder and seized him directly from the kayak. The crocodile pulled Hendri beneath the surface almost immediately. Ben and Chris could only watch as Hendri's red kayak overturned and shook violently for approximately 20 seconds. The crocodile was pulling his body from the tight cockpit below the surface. Then the movement stopped. The empty kayak drifted free. The 2 surviving men remained exposed in the same river, with no way of knowing where the crocodile had gone. They paddled downstream as quickly as possible and reached a village less than a mile away. Hendri's kayak later floated past them. There were no obvious scratches or damage showing what had happened. His body was never recovered. Villagers familiar with the river estimated that the crocodile may have been approximately 15 feet long, although its exact size could not be confirmed. The expedition cameras recorded Hendri throughout the journey and documented the aftermath, but the fatal strike itself was not clearly captured. It happened too quickly and from outside the camera's view. 3 highly experienced kayakers had crossed nearly 1,000 miles together. They were following the safety formation designed to protect them. Yet on a calm section of river, with his companions only feet away, Hendri disappeared before either man had a chance to reach him. On March 3, 2025, Christiane Salvador and her husband Philip joined a large group kayaking through Tiger Creek Canal in Polk County, Florida. Approximately 20 paddlers were traveling together through the narrow waterway. The size of the group offered a sense of security. They were not alone in an isolated part of the canal. Kayaks stretched ahead and behind them, with other people always within sight. Christiane moved through the water without seeing an alligator. Then something struck her paddle. The impact was strong enough to snap it. Before she could understand what had happened, her kayak overturned and dropped her into the canal. Christiane surfaced and struggled to keep her head above water. She then realized that one of her arms would not move. An alligator had clamped its jaws around her right elbow beneath the surface. Philip maneuvered his kayak beside her and attempted to pull her from the water. He managed to lift her upper body across his boat, but her trapped arm remained below. Something was pulling her backward. The alligator's snout eventually broke the surface, allowing Philip to see that it still held Christiane's elbow in its mouth. Around 40 yards away, another kayaker named David Morse heard the kayak overturn. When he reached them, he could see Christiane stretched across Philip's boat while an unseen force pulled her toward the canal. The alligator eventually released her. Philip brought Christiane toward shore and began first aid. David remained near the overturned kayak and attempted to turn it upright. That was when the alligator attacked again. It surged toward David, seized the front of his life jacket, and pulled him beneath the surface. Unlike Christiane, the animal had not caught his arm or leg. Its teeth were embedded in the flotation vest strapped around his torso. David fought back underwater by pushing his fingers deeply into the alligator's eyes. When he regained his footing, he released the buckles securing the vest. David escaped from it while the alligator moved away with the life jacket still in its mouth. Emergency crews now had to reach Christiane in a remote canal with severe damage to her arm. A medical helicopter located the group from above. 2 medical professionals transferred onto an airboat sent from Lake Kissimmee State Park and traveled through the canal to reach her. Christiane was flown to Osceola Regional Hospital. Her upper right forearm had been badly damaged, with additional puncture wounds below the elbow. Doctors initially faced concerns about infection and whether the arm could be saved. She avoided amputation but required reconstructive surgeries, continued treatment, and physical therapy to recover movement in her hand and arm. Wildlife officers later located and killed an 8-foot 3-inch female alligator believed responsible. The attack itself was not captured on verified video. Its sequence became known through Christiane, Philip, David, the surrounding kayakers, and the official wildlife investigation. A group of 20 people had entered the canal together. But when the first kayak overturned, the alligator managed to attack 2 of them before anyone fully understood what was beneath the water.